Next GCSE unit that we're going to cover looks at probability, and probability is really the science of games and about how likely something is to happen. And we're starting with the basics, which is where just one event is taking place. And we're going to spend the first skill looking at probability with one event, and then we're going to start looking at what happens when we've got more than one event going on. So here's an example question. A five-sided spinner, and we can see this spinner here, it's got A, B and C on it, is spun, and we're asked to firstly calculate the probability of A, secondly calculate the probability of it not being A, and thirdly calculate how many times we would expect it to land on B if it was spun 300 times. So let's have a look at those three questions. So firstly, to calculate a simple probability, we look at the number of successful outcomes. So probability of a success is equal to the number of successful outcomes over the total number of outcomes. So in this first example, the total number of outcomes, the total number of sides that the spinner can land on, is 5. So this is going to be a probability out of 5, and we tend to give our answers to probability questions as fractions unless we're told otherwise in the question. So here we've got 5 outcomes. We're looking at the number of successful outcomes. So it wanted probability of A, so we're looking at the number of sides of the spinner which have an A on them, which is 1, 2, 3. So my probability there is 3 out of 5. Now an exam question could ask us to turn that into a percentage, could ask to turn it into a decimal, but if it doesn't ask us, then we leave it as a fraction. So that's part 1. Part 2 asks us the probability of it not being A. And because probabilities add up to 100%, add up to one whole, we can use the probability of not A is 1 minus the probability of A happening. So here we know that the probability of A was 3/5, so the probability of not A is 1 take away 3/5. Now remember 1 we can write as 5/5 take away 3/5, which gives me an answer of 2/5. We could have done that another way. We could have said there's still 5 outcomes. 2 of those outcomes are not A, those 2 outcomes are not A, which would give us an answer of 2 out of 5. But sometimes we need to use this formula to help us work out probability. The last question, how many times would we expect it to land on B if it's spun 300 times? Well, for part 3, expected number of successes is the probability of success times by the number of trials. So the probability of it landing on B is 1 out of 5 in total, because there's only one B and 5 outcomes. So it's 1/5 of 300. And 1/5 of 300, 300 times by 1 is 300, divided by 5, which gives me an answer of 60. Okay, pause the video now while you take down the worked examples, and then we will have a go at some questions afterwards. Okay, so here are 7 questions for you to try. For question 1, you're looking at simple, making sure you list your numbers from 1 to 9, find how many of them are 3, how many of them are even, and so on. For question 2, you need to add up your probabilities and make sure they add to 1. Same for 3 and 4. For question 5, you're looking at using the rule of multiplying your probability of success times your number of trials. And for question 7, we're going back to have a look at two-way tables and how two-way tables can apply to probability. It's quite wordy questions, so don't feel as though you need to write down the questions in their entirety. Pause the video now while you have a go at those questions, and when you're ready for the solutions, press play again and we can go through the solutions. Okay, so here are your solutions. For question 1, your probabilities should all be out of 9 because there's 9 numbers in the bag. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Probability of getting 3 is 1 out of 9 because there's only one of them. Probability that it's even, well that's 2, 4, 6 and 8, so there's 4 of them out of 9. Probability of less than 5, 1, 2, 3 and 4, so it's 4 out of 9. Probability of multiple of 3 is 3, 6 and 9, so there's 3 of them. Probability of getting 17, well you can't because it only goes up as 9, so it's 0. Don't give that a 0 out of 9 please, it's just plain 0. And the probability of it being prime is 3 out of 9, your prime numbers there are 2, 5 and 7. Okay, football team, we know we've got 2 of the probabilities, the other possible outcome is a draw, so we add those 2 together and take it away from 1, gives us an answer of 0.25. For question 3, we're told that it's equally likely to win or lose, so win or lose together must be 0.9. Divide that by 2 gave you 0.45 for each of win and lose. Twice as likely to win as lose, so here what I've done is I know that the total probability remaining is 0.9. I've divided that by 3 and given 2 parts of it to win and 1 part of it to lose. So the probability of winning is 0.6, the probability of losing is 0.3, and the probability of drawing is 0.1. Together those add up to 1 whole. So I've got 73 green counters for question 5. Here this must be, times it by 200 to tell me it's 47 blue counters. Pink counters must be the remainder, which gave me 80. Very similar for question 6. A half of the 10 counters gives me half the 10 cards give me 5 cards, a fifth gives me 2 cards, so there must be 3 of the other type of cards remaining to add up to 10. Filling in the two-way table gave me these digits here. Probability of being on time is 85 out of the total of 100. Probability of being late on a dry day. Well, we know that the total number of dry days is 68. Of those he's late twice, so it's 2 out of the 68. Probability of being late on a wet day, the total number of wet days is 32. The probability of being late is 13. So we can see the probability is much higher of being late on a wet day than being late on a dry day. Okay, can you give yourself a mark there? That should come out of 14. If you need any more assistance on that, please take a look at Hegarty Basic Probability. Very well done.